بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على رسوله الكريم أما بعد فقد قال الله تعالى في القرآن المجيد بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وإذا سلك عبادي عني فإني قريب أجيب دعوة الداعي إذا دعان فليستجيبوا لي وليؤمنوا بي لعلهم يرشدون صدق الله العظيم. وقال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم إن الدعاء هو العبادة أو كما قال عليه الصلاة والسلام. My dear respected brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah, all praise is due to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who has guided us and who has allowed us to come here for the Jum'ah Salah and to listen to the Jum'ah Khutbah. And especially to those, mashallah, who have come early. I thank all of you and I make dua that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to reap the reward for coming early. And I pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allows me to say some words, inshallah, that will benefit us all. So my dear brothers and sisters, let's take a moment and try and think back to the last time when we were in some type of a calamity. Right? Try and think about the last time when you were in some type of trouble, in some distress or some worry. And just think about the feelings that you were going through at that time. And especially what I want us to think about is, what was our first reaction? What did we first think about, or what did we go to for help to get us out of that situation? Right? How is a person supposed to react in this type of situation? Well, as far as the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, if we look into his blessed life, we see that the Prophet ﷺ, whenever he was faced with any type of difficulty, whether it was small or whether it was something big, then the first thing that he would do was to turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? The first thing he would do is to turn to Allah and to pray to Him and to ask Him for His divine help. He would turn to Allah first. But can we say the same thing about ourselves? That when we are in some type of worry or distress, or even if it's something small, that when we feel pain in our head, maybe we have a headache coming on or we start to feel sick, then where does our mind go to first? Do we first ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us shifa and to help us? Or is our mind are we first reaching toward an aspirin bottle or a Tylenol bottle for some medicine? Of course, medicine, it's not like it's forbidden. This is also the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But the point is that the first one that we should think of is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And whatever means there are, whether it's medicine or something else, that's secondary. Right? We still use those things, but only with the understanding that it's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who will either allow this thing to benefit me or not. And this is something that wasn't only the habit of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but even his respected companions, radiyallahu ta'ala anhum ajma'in, they all had this quality as well. That whenever they needed anything, right, they would at once turn toward Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Whether it was something small, like like a shoe getting messed up, and comes one narration that the Sahaba, they would make dua even if they needed their shoe to be fixed. First they would turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and ask for His help, and then they would do whatever means were necessary. Right? And one interesting story, right, of a Sahabiya who turned to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the time of distress and in the time of need. It's recorded in Hayat al-Sahaba and also in Sunan Bayhaqi on the authority of Anas radiallahu ta'ala an. He tells us the story of this woman who had become Muslim and she was living in Mecca. And as we know, the Muslims at that time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when they became Muslim and they embraced Islam, then they also made hijrah. Right? They also traveled then to Medina because that's where the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was at the time. Right? So that's exactly what she did. She accepted Islam and went on this long and arduous journey to travel to Medina, right? As this was a part of Islam at the time. And she wasn't alone. She had with her a young child, a young boy. This was her son. And when she reached to Medina, then basically the Prophet ﷺ had some woman take care of this old woman that had come from Mecca. And as for her son, since he was a young man, he entrusted him into some of the other men who were to take care of him for the time being. Right? So Anas radiallahu ta'ala anh, he was from among those men that was taking care of this child, of this young man. So anyway, what ended up happening was that unfortunately, this young man, the climate of Medina did not really agree with the temperament of his body. And what ended up happening was that he fell ill. Right? And this was a common thing that would happen. A lot of the Sahaba, in fact, Abu Bakr radiallahu anh, Bilal radiallahu anh, when they first moved to Medina, then they would get, this illness, for some time. But this child, unfortunately, what happened was he became ill, and he got this sickness, and that eventually led to his death. After a few days, he passed away from that illness. So, of course, they informed then the mother, and they started making the burial preparations. And the mother didn't arrive until basically they had already put the kafan on him, and they were just about to, get ready to bury the body. When the mother, she finally arrives, and upon seeing her child, she starts crying. She breaks down in tears, and she grabs the feet of her son, and she starts making dua. She starts saying to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that, "Oh Allah, I became Muslim, and I submitted toward you, and I opposed the idols." Right? She was an idol worshiper before. "I opposed the idols, I turned away from them, and I submitted toward your will, and I traveled all the way here from my city, from Mecca, leaving everything behind. Oh Allah, do not let the idol worshippers rejoice at my expense. Let it not be that they see that I've become Muslim and my son has passed away, and they will start mocking me and taunting me and saying that, look, before you were an idol worshipper, you left idol worship, you became Muslim, and look, our gods, they killed your son. That's the reason why your son has died." So she made this dua that let this not be the case. "Oh Allah, if this son, he remains dead, then this is what they will say to me." So Anas radiallahu ta'ala, he's standing there and watching this, and he was amazed that no sooner had these words left the lips of this old woman, that child came back to life. That child came back to life. His feet started moving. He took the kafan and removed it from his face himself. This is the same person that not so long ago, just a few moments ago, the Prophet ﷺ was closing that child's eyes, and yet now he's coming back to life. Through what? Through the dua of his mother. Right? So the point I'm trying to get to is we understand the power of dua. This is really something the Prophet ﷺ said, it's the weapon of a believer. It's something so strong and so powerful that we need to understand how great of a gift it is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But a person, he might be thinking that, that's a great story and all, but when I make dua and I pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I don't get the same results. Right? When I make dua and I ask Allah, and this is maybe not the case with everyone, but some people might have that feeling, that how come when I make dua I don't get miracles like this? Even when I ask for small things, those things, they might not come true. So that's exactly what I want to discuss today, inshallah, is some of the ways that we can strengthen our du'as, the ways that we can make our du'as stronger, more likely to be accepted. And one of the first things that I want to talk about is actually a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. He mentions that, وَاعْلَمُوا أَنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يَسْتَجِيبُ دُعَاءً مِنْ قَلْبٍ غَافِرٍ لَاهٍ. That he said that know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not accept the dua. He does not answer the dua of a heart which is heedless, right? A heart which is not paying attention. Do you understand? So when we make a dua, it should be with full focus and that we're concentrating. Unfortunately, today you see it so often that in the masjid and elsewhere, that a person, he'll be raising his hands, right, in dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is the time where he's supposed to be conversing with Allah and telling Him his needs and asking whatever he wants, and yet he's looking here and there. You understand? Sometimes you see, maybe he's raising his hands in dua, one hand is raised and the other hand he's doing something with his phone. Na'udhu billah, what is this? That we're supposed to be connecting with Allah, and yet instead, we're focusing on something else. Then why are we surprised then that our du'as are not being accepted? So the first point that I'm trying to make is that our dua we do with full concentration and devotion. And another advice of the Prophet ﷺ regarding dua was that ud'u Allah wa antum muqinuna bil ijaba. That he said that make dua in such a state that you are certain, that you have conviction that that dua will be accepted. You understand? That it shouldn't be such we're making dua and at the same time we're doubting whether this is going to happen or not. We're doubting whether Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is even going to accept our dua. You understand? But the Prophet ﷺ said, no, when you make dua, you should do it with not only just the thought that Allah will accept it, but muqinuna bil ijaba, that have yaqeen, have firm conviction that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will accept my dua. When we have this conviction, this is more likely to make our dua be accepted. And when this will come when we build our connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? The verse that I recited in the beginning, this is very important as it's a verse that pertains directly to dua. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself, he says, وَإِذَا سَأَلَكَ عِبَادِي عَنِّي فَإِنِّي قَرِيبٌ. Right? That tell my slaves that when they call upon me, when they ask something from me, فَإِنِّي قَرِيبٌ, then I'm right there with them. You understand? When we make dua, we should have the understanding that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is right there with me. فَإِنِّي قَرِيبٌ, I am close to that person. أُجِيبُ دَعْوَةَ الدَّاعِ إِذَا دَعَانِ. Right? That I accept the call of the person who calls upon me. So, the point being that we make our dua with concentration, devotion, building our connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, knowing that He is listening and also believing and having the conviction that He is going to accept that dua. Now these advices were more pertaining toward the dua itself. There are also some tips or some advices regarding strengthening our dua that have more to do with our life outside of dua, the way that we live our lives. Right? One thing is that we should not just make dua a thing that we do when we're in worry and when we're in distress. You understand? There's a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. He said that man sarrahu an yastajib Allahu lahu 'inda ash-shada'i wal kurb falyakthur ad-du'a fi ar-raqa. That the one who wishes that his dua they be accepted in times of difficulty and distress, that's usually when we turn to Allah. Right? When we're in difficulty and distress, that's where we really want our dua, when we need our dua to be accepted. So the Prophet ﷺ said, if you want your dua to be accepted in the time of distress, فَلْيُكْثِرْ, then make abundant dua at the times فِي الرَّخَاء, in the times of ease, in the times of comfort. So what I'm trying to say is that we should be consistent in making our dua. Not that it's just when my exam is coming, or it's time for me to get married, or I'm trying really hard to have children. These are the times where that we really focus and we make dua. And that's true, we should be doing that. But and other times as well, when we are in times of ease and comfort, where there's not any major problem that's afflicting us, we should still be taking out the time to connect with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And by virtue of this, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is more likely to then accept our du'as in the time of distress and in the times of worry. And another aspect of this is that we should never lose hope in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accepting our dua and answering our call when we call Him. Unfortunately, a lot of us, we have this problem that we'll have a problem and we'll make dua once, and that thing, it won't come true, and then we'll just stop making dua altogether. But this is not the way that it should be. We should be consistent and persistent in our dua. If we really want something, look at the example of a child. That a child, when he wants, for example, like a piece of candy or something like that from his mother, so he might go to his mom and say that, Mom, please give me that piece of candy. And the mother, she doesn't want to give it to him. She says no. Right? At first she'll say no. But the child, he'll ask again, that please Mom, come on, please give it to me. And then again she'll say no. And then sometimes the child, he'll get so sad, he'll start crying, maybe even screaming like, come on Mom, please, please, please. And he'll pull at her clothes and just keep on asking and asking until eventually the mom will feel bad and she'll feel sad. And then she'll also maybe even start crying and hug the child and, okay, here you go. Here you go, my son, here's the candy that you asked for. Right? So similarly, we should ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala not just once or twice, but consistently and persistently. If we really want something, if we really want that dua to be accepted, then we should ask repeatedly. Right? We should wake up for tahajjud. We should ask after every salah. And not become impatient when we don't see our dua being accepted immediately. right? Because the dua, it's accepted in many different forms. You know that? It's not just that we'll always, just because we don't see, the result of our dua before our eyes, that doesn't mean that it wasn't accepted. It's in a hadith of Muslim Ahmad that a dua, it can be accepted in many different forms, right? One is that, that you made the dua and what you did, you got that, right? But another thing is that sometimes Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows, for example, that thing you're asking for is not something that's actually good for you, right? So what He might do instead is give you something else that is better for you, or maybe He'll remove a calamity that was supposed to befall you. I'll give an example. That, for example, if someone, he's constantly making this dua that he has a job and he wants this promotion. He wants to get to the next ladder and in his corporate job, whatever the case may be. He wants to get to the next step of the ladder. So he's constantly making dua that, oh Allah, I want this promotion, I want this promotion, I want this, this higher paying job. Right? And yet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't give it to him. Someone else gets that job instead. Even though he made a lot of dua and he might have been sincere in that. But the thing is that it's possible, it's very possible, it's very likely that maybe, in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His infinite knowledge, He knows that if he were to be promoted, then he would get so many more responsibilities and he would become so much more busy at work. Now he doesn't have time for his kids. And his kids now, they start to dislike him that our dad never spends time with us, right? And they start to maybe even become disobedient to him, disobedient to Allah as well. Do you understand what I'm trying to get to? It's possible that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, instead of giving him that job, He'll still give him barakah in his rizq, but and at the same time save him from becoming so busy that he doesn't have time for his kids. So the dua, it's not always accepted the way that we want it, but we should always understand that if I did my dua sincerely, then inshallah Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give me that which is best for me, right? And sometimes it's not even that. Rather, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He'll store that dua for that person the hereafter. The du'as that may not be accepted immediately in front of our eyes, a lot of the times Allah is keeping that for us in the hereafter. And the scholars say then when a person in the hereafter, when he sees the reward for all the du'as that he made that weren't accepted, then he'll regret and he'll feel that, man, I wish all of my du'as weren't accepted. Because the reward that I had stored for me in the hereafter was so much greater than the du'as and the result of the du'as that I made that were accepted. And another thing is that as far as our life outside of du'a, how can that improve the du'a that we make? How can it improve and strengthen the power of our du'a? Is that we should increase ourselves in good a'mal, right? And that doesn't just mean in worship, but also in good deeds regarding akhlaq, when it comes to our conduct, when it comes to the way that we treat people, right? When a person, he treats others nicely, he treats them with mercy, then he's more deserving of the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? We learned this from many hadith. One hadith, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Irham man fil ardi, yarhamukum man fis sama." That if you have mercy, or rather he said, have mercy on those who are in the land, right? Those that are on earth, then the one in the skies will have mercy on you, right? And this is something that we see in for example, in the lives of the companions and the tabi'een, right? We don't have much time, but one of the Prophet ﷺ talked about the most, the one who was the most high in status from among the tabi'een. His name was Awais Qarni, rahimahullah. And he didn't mention much about him, except that he was very kind to his mother. And because he was so pious and he was so beloved by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that the Prophet ﷺ actually told Umar radiallahu anh, who was a great sahabi, right, a very great sahabi, he told him that when you eventually meet Awais, rahmatullahi alayh, then be sure to ask him to make dua for you. You understand? Because his dua was likely to be accepted. And the main thing that the Prophet ﷺ mentioned about him was what? That he was kind to his mother. You understand? So we have to be kind to other people, especially our parents, and this will make our dua more likely to be accepted. And the last thing is that when it comes to du'as being accepted, probably even more important than increasing in our good deeds is staying away from bad ones. Especially when it comes to haram food and haram income. Right? There's a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ in which he mentions the story of a man. And just one aspect of that he says, the Prophet ﷺ said, يَطِيلُ السَّفَرُ right? That this man, he was on a very long and difficult journey. Ash'ath Aghbar, that he was, his hair was disheveled and he was wearing like shabby clothes in a very pitiable condition. Right? So a person that outwardly you would think that he's very deserving of the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And yamuddu yadayhi ila sama, he's extending his hands toward the skies and he's saying, Ya Rabbi, Ya Rabbi. He's making dua that, oh Allah. Right? So it seems his dua would be likely to be accepted. But the Prophet ﷺ added something else. He said, وَمَطْعَمُهُ حَرَامٌ وَمَشْرَبُهُ حَرَامٌ وَمَلْبَسُهُ حَرَامٌ وَغُذِيَ بِالْحَرَامِ. Right? That he might have looked as if he was in a pitiable state, but his clothes were from haram, his food was from haram, his income, he's being nourished by haram. So then the Prophet ﷺ, he said, فَأَنَّا يُسْتَجَابَ لِذَلِكَ. Then how on earth will this person's dua be accepted? Even though he's in such a pitiable condition, but because of the source of his income and the food that is nourishing him is from haram sources, then how on earth will his dua be accepted? Right? So my dear brothers and sisters, just to recap and to conclude, what I hope we all take away from this reminder is the importance of dua and how powerful it is. As we learned, it's something that can even bring the dead back to life. It's something which is extremely powerful, and we need to learn to benefit from it as much as we can. And different ways to strengthen our dua is to make sure that we're always focused and concentrated when we're making our dua, and hoping and having the conviction that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will accept it. And then outside of the dua itself, trying to improve our life, to build our connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and to stay away from those things which displease Him. I pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to truly benefit from all that what we have heard, and that He bless us and accept all of our righteous du'as. Ameen wa akhiru da'wana, and alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. We can pray our sunnahs inshallah.